The easiest way to amplify your message is through guest podcasting on other people's podcasts. So what you really want to do here is find out which are the podcasts in your industry that your audience is listening to, who those hosts are, what their contact information is, who are they looking to interview on their podcast, who some of their most recent guests have been, the topics that they like to cover, what topics are they looking to cover, and how can you provide value to their audience in an intentional, meaningful way. So this is my Brandpod account. This is what the inside looks like. This is on a pro plan, so it's going to have more features than the free and the light account. But whatever we're looking at today is going to be the same for both light and pro accounts. So once you're in here, you're going to click on the podcast card. And what it's going to do is it's going to give me an overview of the podcast landscape in my industry. It's going to give me some ICP scores of the podcasts that it found for me. It's going to tell me, because it knows that I talk about AI, it's going to tell me how I can use it as a key differentiator. So again, some strategies that are going to be directly related to you, your expertise, and your target audience. It's also going to give you a more in-depth analysis here, but really what I want you to look at is the podcast tab. Now, these are all the podcasts that it has identified, the agents in Brandpod have identified that would be a good fit for me to consider. You'll see that it's marked all of these as strong fits. There is a moderate fit one here, and then there are a bunch of strong ones here again. Okay, so you can filter through just strong ones. You can filter through a few different things here. But what I want to show you is what kind of detail that it finds for you in these podcasts. So let's look at one of these, which is a strong fit. It's given me some information and topics covered by this podcast, which is really important to see if it's actually in alignment with what I want to do. The other important piece of information to look for is if they accept guests, who some of their previous guests have been, the industry these guests have been from, their website, so you can check out the podcast, their contact information. This is super, super important. And their last 5 episodes. You really want to be intentional about who you reach out to and how you reach out to tell them why you should be on their show. So I'm going to show you one that I've already written a pitch for. So this one is for the Marketer's Toolkit for Go High Level, which is a podcast in my industry. And I can pick solo mode or assistant mode. In this case, I picked assistant mode, which just means that I want the AI to write on behalf of my assistant, my VA, my EA, whoever that may be, instead of me writing directly and representing myself. This is a personal choice. I've seen experts have greater success when they have their VAs and their EAs reach out on behalf of them. And I've seen a ton of experts get a lot of success just by pitching for themselves, which is something that I've done myself. I've always pitched for myself and the results have been amazing. Now let's go back to solo mode, because that's actually what I used already to create this pitch. So this is directly from me. And it says, "Hi, Tom. Hope you're having a great week. I've been listening to the podcast name," right? This is the podcast host name. This is the name of the podcast. And I loved your recent episode with one of their last interviewed guests. Your conversation around this topic was really spot on. And you don't have to be nervous that the AI is making up stuff here. This is tried and tested and is really, really accurate. So you don't have to be nervous about sending out this message without actually doing your homework and listening to this. In the interest of time, and increasing your chances of getting a response, it is all a volume game right now. So send out as many of these pitches as you can. The system will also help you follow up if you don't hear from them within a week to 10 days. So what you really want to do is send out as many of these pitches every week as you can, or have your VA or assistant send out as many of these on your behalf so that you start to get responses back. Now, once you get a response back and once somebody invites you to get on a call with them or get on their actual podcast, that's when I recommend going through the podcast that you just emailed them about. So you know what they're talking about if they ask you about it live on their podcast. So it talks about the discussion that they've had. Again, really showing how I have done my homework and how I've spent years on doing this myself, what I went through, my experiences, my story. This is what I struggled with. This is why the story of yours, your episode really resonated with me. And now what I do with this experience. And then slowly moving this to the kind of value that I could be providing to their audience. So a few conversation angles that your audience might find valuable. Again, there are some topics here. I'd love to talk more about this if this feels like a fit. And then signing off. Again, because this is in solo mode, it's signing off as me. If I used assistant mode, it would sign off on behalf of my assistant who is representing me as the expert. So hopefully that makes sense. Also, something that I highly recommend doing is leaving a thoughtful, meaningful review for the podcast. Podcast hosts love it when somebody takes the time to listen to their content and leaves them a meaningful review. So doing this either right before or right after you reach out and pitch is really, really powerful and increases your chances of getting a response. Now, pitching is only the first half of the game. A lot of people have found success and gotten responses from their very first pitch, but most of the people that I work with, most of the clients and the experts that I work with in different industries tend to get a response after their first or second follow-up. So following up is actually equally important to pitching in the first place. And the way you follow up is in a very, again, meaningful way, not in a way that makes the host feel like you are just all up in their business and constantly bugging them, asking them to give you a response. So let me show you an example of what that looks like. I'm actually going to navigate into my outreach tracker here and look at my opportunity pipeline. Now, anything that has this glow around it, any of these opportunities that have a glow around it is basically telling me that based on the follow-up window that I set, this is due for a follow-up. So if I hover on this, it's going to create my follow-up for me. Okay. Now, again, this was written in assistant mode, you'll see, and this was written by my assistant, Sarah. So now Brandpod has written this for me in the third person as if my VA, Sarah, is reaching out to them on my behalf. This is who I am. I'm following up about Ruheene's email since she reached out, because again, it knows, Brandpod already knows that I reached out in the first person. Had I reached out through my assistant the first time, it would reference that exact email and who reached out. In this case, it was me. So it's creating this follow-up based on the fact that I sent the first outreach email and now my assistant is following up for me. Short email, not as long as the original pitch, just talking about what has changed since I first reached out and why this might be a second chance to have a conversation and see if I can provide value to their audience. Now, you have the opportunity of sending up to 3 follow-ups, but as you can see, I don't usually send more than 2. This is just a personal preference thing. But the idea is that you get to decide how often you want to follow up, how you want to follow up, whether it's from you, whether it's from your assistant, and at what point do you want to put them maybe in a nurture later list where you can reach out 3 to 6 months again. Once you've got more credibility, you've built more of an audience for yourself, more of your personal brand, then you can reach out again and try and engage this host again in the future. Many times podcast hosts are just so busy that they miss your message the first time. So don't be shy about reaching out to them again in a few months. So that is your podcast strategy. I hope this was helpful and I hope this is getting you excited, because while there are so many ways to get featured, to build a personal brand, to get out there, get on stages and podcasts, it's a different experience when everything comes from that core point of unique value and market positioning. Everything aligns, everything feels very cohesive. And let's say at any point, if you feel like the suggestions that the agents have come up with for podcasts that you would be a good fit for just aren't doing it, or maybe you've already pitched to all of them and you're ready to move on to the next podcast hosts, there's another way that you can source podcasts that are trending in your industry and the ones that are a good fit for you. So let me show you that as well. If I go into research pods and go back into my podcast, you'll see that there is a discover new podcast field. So this is where I can either search for a specific podcast, either by the host name or by the title of the actual podcast itself, or just using a keyword. So in my case, let's say I want to look for podcasts that are focused on branding. So with that keyword, it's going to pull up all the podcasts it can find on iTunes. I can select any of these that I think would be cool. I can select this. It's going to show me a little bit of information. I can see that this has a lot of episodes, what genre or what industry this podcast is in. And if I decide to pursue this and dive deeper and see maybe if they accept guests or who their previous guests have been, or reach out to them through email, I can click on dive deeper. It will go ahead, do all the research for me, grab all the intel it can from the iTunes listing of this podcast, bring this into my system, and again, give me an overview like it has with the other ones. Similar to the other ones, it's going to show me how I can find out whether they accept guests, who their previous guests have been, and how I can reach out to them and send them an email that connects their podcast to my expertise and how I can provide value. So go ahead, give this a try, get out there, find those podcasts that are a good fit for you and start reaching out. So enjoy the process, have fun with this, and go start getting featured on the top podcast in your industry.